Monkey here, and you might be thinking from that headline, this is a little bit of a weird video for the MIL-SPEC Monkey channel. And, I thought I'd mix it up. It sort of turns into tactical and hopefully comedic value. But the general idea is I've been a lifelong action movie lover, and this one was so bad it was the first time I felt compelled to spread the word just how bad it is. And hopefully kind of ends up as a MST3K comedy joyride amongst the way, but for its budget class and the fact that it was highly promoted on Netflix, felt it was worth it, because it's not that hard to just find any random bad movie. And to put things into further context, like, I've enjoyed plenty of classic strong female roles, lead roles, say like Ripley in Alien, or Sarah Connor in the old Terminators, Gina Carano in Haywire, or pretty much any movie she's ever been in. It's not that I'm like some old fud sexist, like a lot of us older geeks and nerds have seen plenty of examples of this as possible. And this kind of weird new age of overdoing it and not understanding what makes just a strong person. So this movie, Interceptor, is kind of a perfect example of that. So it might be a long ride, but join me. I think it might be entertaining. So get ready. All right, so starting off with the foundation premise. The idea is, on the West Coast at least, there's only 2 nuclear missile defense sites for America, and one of them was in Fort Greely, Alaska, which is currently being overrun in this intro. But there's this secret squirrel one named SPX-1 that's off in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, apparently, and so that's going to be our last hope for this type of attack. So moving on, we get this fly-in sequence, which is a pretty reasonable start. We see our star here, Captain J.J. Collins, rolling in. And we get these nice wide shots showing the base that most of the movie is going to be about. And the CG is pretty decent here, so it kind of looks like a cool premise, a cool setup. And then when they land here, one of the first people they meet is Ensign Washington, and it seems like a very pleasant person. And I missed it the first time I watched it, but they sneak in here that JJ grew up in Spain. And this is notable because there's like, they don't go over any of her background. And also, very quickly, you're like, why does this person have an accent?
You remember Captain Welsh?
Yes, sir. You were just taking over when I rotated out.
Also, this backstory is pretty weak. If you have a U.S. father in a U.S. military base, you're more likely going to be English priority speaking and bilingual, not Spanish priority speaking and bilingual. Anyway, gotta note it because it's gonna get weird in background here pretty soon. Ensign Washington also has a lady moment where she's like, oh, I really hated how that incident happened and turned out. And so they're laying it thick on like ladies being repressed from the start. So besides not getting much JJ backstory, we never learn on why she would be a magical badass. To look into it for fun, I thought, look up for the patches. Hey, sort of my thing. And so looking at one, it appears to be very similar to the 31st Air Defense Artillery Brigade. And they remixed it a little bit, so it looks like kind of like a made-up 33rd. But then there is no true 33rd as far as I could tell. Maybe I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments, whatever. But going by the 31st, that is a real one, so that's like a Patriot battery. And so that's, although deployed overseas in conflict zones, that's not exactly behind enemy lines. It's not a very, I'm going to punch people type of operation. And then the other one is the 116th Military Intelligence Brigade, remixed a little bit. And they're known for aerial intelligence, so that's like even further away from the battlefield. So both these don't make much sense for being a badass. I mean, they're still important roles and whatever, but and then once we finally get into the facility, most of the people are wearing the 100th Missile Defense Brigade patches, which does make sense because they actually do defense against ICBMs. But anyway, in summary, none of these allude to like why she's magical badass. So after meeting up with the head cheese of the rig, we got Lieutenant Colonel Marshall, and he seemed like a nice enough fellow. He's sorry that she ended up at his crap facility that he runs, and he was just like, oh, sorry, that's the man all holding us down. And again, it's very unclear what JJ would rather be doing. But anyway, he's like, they get news about what went down in Alaska, and so he's like, grab your blaster, JJ, let's meet me in the command room. And then we get to see some other supporting characters. So we meet with Corporal Shaw. His job seems to just be the Indian nerd of the group. And then we have Nova Rank Beaver, who I guess his job just to be white trash. Haha, that's funny. And then they have this weird moment where they're kind of doing a laptop plug, but the logo's unclear, so it's not like a classic Dell laptop plug. Becomes important later, but anyway, it's pretty awkward after a little dialogue, and then we get boom, straight to the action about 12 minutes in. Oh, this is an action movie, right? And so guns are blazing. I hope you didn't like Colonel Marshall, though, because he gets shot in the face, and he is dead. And so that's a little sad, but the real comedy is this janitor rebellion going on. They have some pretty hilarious outfits. What we learn to be as the main bad guy obviously stands out as being like handsome Hollywood man, and then the rest just look like janitors, stuntmen, because they literally are stuntmen. And so it's further complexity of hilarity where they try and explain it as like they were like contractors, like they wouldn't just be normal military people to do janitorial work on this super squirrel facility out in the middle of the ocean. So multiple comical layers there. So the first fight isn't too shabby at first. Like you see these stuntmen getting banged up, making their paycheck, making JJ look good. You even see JJ get yeeted in her 5'3" glory, which is more than many other lady action movies can say. But then things get a little bit interesting when you see the big boy janitor. He has a backpack full of acid because he thought that was a great covert idea. So he gets tripped, there's acid going everywhere, and he comes at her and he gets shot doing a charge, shrugs it off, unclear if he's wearing armor or not. Then they get in this other scuffle, and apparently they thought they had a new spin on the old 80s slide trick, so JJ takes off the slide of the pistol and proceeds to stab Mr. Bad Guy in the eye with the lower of his pistol. And so that's when it went to crazy town. Was it memorable? Yes. Was it believable? Not so much. Not so much. So that's where, I straight up paused the movie and I was like, should I continue? 'Cause this is like, clearly we were going in an interesting direction from here. And and that acid you're talking about, apparently that turned in, basically its only purpose in this scene is to give a reason for JJ to take her shirt off, because that's how you fight the patriarchy. So after this ruckus, JJ was able to secure the command room and end up in this standoff type situations. And the main bad guy, which we learn is Alexander, because he gives up his full name like a very smart tactician. There's no good reason to do that. And then he goes into a full Bond cartoon villain mode, and he goes on and on about every detail, every plan. I guess because he's just so confident that he'll be able to do it and wants to terrorize JJ or whatever. So they're kind of going over the general idea that they got a hold of some nukes in Russia and they're going to shoot them over to America because reasons. And, and then not long after it goes over that he killed the rest of the crew. Like he controls basically almost the whole rig at this point because they use nerve agent and shot people in the face. And so we have a little moment for Ensign Washington. Oh no, my favorite character already dead. And then he adds another silly detail where he's like, oh, don't worry, we can't use our nerve agent in this command room because I just want, I wouldn't want you to worry too much or whatever, or maybe because we think the audience is still too stupid. And for some reason, this was the only thing that needed to be extra explained, as if many other things after this won't be totally crazy and unbelievable. Moving on, JJ's like, hey, we should secure up this main command room. That's all we got right now. And so they're talking about ideas of what to worry about. And they're like, oh, hey, did you check the hatch? And they're like, oh, I didn't check the hatch. And then a ninja comes out from the lower hatch of all options. And he busts out his gat, and they're ready to go to work. But JJ subdues him quickly, and then you would think maybe he'd go on to his next weapon. They're like, no, he's like, we are going to do some kung fu fighting. And so they do some kung fu fighting, and it's kind of a sad fight. You could tell this is a skilled man. He's dumbing it down to make it work. It's a silly fight. Last ditch effort. He finally goes to that knife he thought he was too good to use on this weak woman. Just throws it, gets shot by a shotgun, boom, ninja's dead. Unclear if he's even part of the janitors at this point, because that would have been much easier as a dual breach. Very confusing. And then the shotgun is declared inoperable because it's old, I guess. That would seemingly be probably the least plausible problem. And while we're here, we might as well mention that there are no rifles in this movie at this point. We've seen pistols, the shotgun, they snuck in an MP5 at one point. 0 rifles in this whole facility. As a bonus, while they're dragging this ninja's bodies out, Shaw uses this time to, I guess, talk about how Indian he is. And then you get this nice wide shot of just seeing how ridiculous that this underside, no assist, no rigging, lower breach was. And so it's funny that they did not realize they basically proved how impossible this would be. Alexander comes back and amusingly taunts JJ with this pinup picture she did. This is memorable for later. This will make less sense later. But anyway, he does it. He's taunting her. He's trying to be a dick. And then we go into like pretty much the only service background we're going to get on JJ. And so apparently her background consists of being at the Pentagon and was sexually harassed by some 3-star general. And she was able to like capture it like on a voice wire somehow. First time she was ignored. Second time finally got him, had proof. Made it a big old ordeal. Nobody believed her at first. And now, once she kicked this general out, all the army's just giving her a big old crappy time. They're harassing her with, terrible emails, oh no. And then later they wreck her room, right? Like, that's definitely a problem. Some security issues. The spray paint is pretty hilarious. It's pretty teenager, I would say. They sneak in one in there. Looks like a Marine with the I came on your bed. It was pretty good. That one was a little bit better than the others. But anyway, like any strong, independent woman would do at this point, she cries a lot, goes into the bathroom, and is pretty much just ready to die, because that's our strong character development right there. Saved by the dad last minute, but that was the real strong moment. So as a recap, since I'm kind of jumping around, so JJ's just trying to hold the fort in the command center because they've got Navy SEALs on the way. Takes a little bit of time to go to the middle of the ocean, so they're trying to stall for time. Alexander and the bad guys, they're trying to plasma torch the doors because they want to get to the command center room where they can disable all the missiles and thus have unimpeded Russian missiles hit wherever they want in America. And so that's where this current time tension is occurring. So I glossed over it earlier, but in the earlier battle, Beaver took a graze wound to the head, and he's been passed out this whole time. And now, to the surprise of no one, Beaver's a big dirty traitor, right? So he gets a secret gun out, blasts JJ and Shaw right in the armor, which notably was plate armor, and they go down like little bitches. And so then he opens the door for Alexander and the crew, and we have a little moment. Beaver then goes on his big speech, and normally I'd like to just play it, but I gotta do some workarounds so I don't get copyright strikes. So I'll just read it here. So they call him a traitor, and he's like, America's the traitor. Always? We're full of shit, Beaver. Oh, what do you know? I love my country. Hell, there was a time I would have even died for it. never too late. Shut up, it's because of immigrants like you I lost my job and the government took away my rights. Started making up all kinds of shit to scare me. Shit, I don't even recognize America these days. And what gives you the right to murder millions of people? Well, it gives me the right to start looking out for myself. And now I got 10 million ways to do that. Money? That's what this is about? Oh yeah, it's what America's about. And if you don't get that, you obviously haven't been paying attention, Shaw. Wake up, man. Yeah, sure. Blame America. Blame the government. Blame everyone else but you. That's what all losers do. So wow, it's a lot to take in, right? For this made-up white trash cartoon character named Beaver. And it's like where to start. So all right, he's hating on immigrants, right? Would he even have that big of a problem with a Spaniard, a light-skinned Spaniard, when he's been in the military, which is very diverse by default? And then he talks about losing his job. I don't know, what did he have, like some factory job, and he's been secretly in the military scheming? Or was it more like he was just a career military guy and didn't lose any jobs? And then supposedly took away his rights. I mean, in modern history, there have not been very many rights taken away. I don't know, maybe he lost his shit over bump stocks. I do not know. That's very unclear. And then, so like, I mean, he definitely gives this like make America great again vibe character, you know, Hollywood's perception of it. And so supposedly his motivation is to send a whole bunch of nukes to all the major cities of America with no separation of belief, just nuke them. And he thinks that's how to achieve these supposed problems, even as this character. Like it's crazy land. Beaver then goes on to flex his support of the patriarchy by being creepy and sexual assaulty. He infers that basically every enlisted soldier would like to do some raping on every female officer, and they're just kind of laying it out there like that's the beliefs of the whole army. It's represented by Beaver. So then, as a response, JJ goes on a weird rant of saying how you should only refer to a woman's first name, goes over all these other adjectives like honey, sweetie pie, etc. Takes particular insult to Darlin for some reason. It's unclear if this was just a setup for a sweet headbutt ambush, or if she particularly disliked Darlin more than any of the other words. Now that they set up this big broadcast, you gotta, let it all out. So of course we get another big boy speech, and so I gotta tell it out again here. So here we go. America is the greatest lie ever told. American exceptionalism? Maybe once, when the founders got rid of kings, when they declared that all men are created equal. Now they say ours are United States, but when was that true? Was it true during the Civil War or Jim Crow? Hell, is it true now? You know this national lie, it's a festering wound and it's fatal. There's no band-aid to patch it. No, the only way to save our nation and the promise it once held is to erase it. Start over. So maybe then, when we are staring at each other from across the rubble, we will all agree that this time we're going to get America right. Wow, again, right? A lot to take in. So this is essentially anti-American, far, far left, very 1619 Project-ish talking points. And it's coming from the bad guy, right? And at the same time, you can tell that the writer thought these were valid American critiques. So it's this weird conflict of like the audience is being set up to like not care because it's the bad guys wants, and then there's doing this basically America's poop rant. So it's a very, very odd situation in general. And then on top of that, these concerns and goals are very different than Beaver's. So these two, in theory, should not even get along. So this is a mess. No one at any point during the script apparently was like, oh, okay, this should be changed. But no, we made it this far. No one said anything. Alexander goes on, starts hassling Shaw about inquiring how much harassment he has received from fellow Americans just by being Indian, and how much discrimination, and how JJ was basically mistreated by the whole army. and oddly brings up the pinup photos, which was a charity event, because that's odd since he used it to be a dick to her as well. So it's very, like, he doesn't have this morality system in order that he's trying to present, and it's not in a clever way like he accidentally slipped. He just looks extremely inconsistent as a created character. Getting back into the action, so there's a lady janitor fight. Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny to note. She's a very Jill of all trades, where she started as a hired gun, also skilled at plasma cutting, master hacker, and apparently now a master street fighter. And so they get it on with a pretty long and involved fight, lots of ups and downs, ends up dead, and like, that's sad, because she was quite the multitasker. For a side discussion, Beaver goes on a rant, kind of basically complaining about his frustration with JJ. It's pretty awkward, where he infers they should have shot her on first sight, but he was the only one with first access, so it's pretty dumb, where his first chance, he shot him in the armor, did not follow through, and now we're having this stupid conversation. As a result of that mean Kira fight, poor JJ gets a gunshot wound to the arm, so she starts looking for medical supplies, finds at least a box, but not particularly impressed with the bandage in there, but despite this being a crappy box, finds a fully fleshed scalpel in there, makes do with the duct tape, didn't use the bandage. Interesting medical procedure. Anyway, moving on, while she's doing this, she gets a heads up from back at base. They're like some extra info that Alexander is apparently ex-military intelligence, gives a little more background on him. Then we are forced another Chris cameo, where I guess he's supposed to depict like average Joe, and he's like, give her some guns, man. And it's just ironic, because you know everyone writing this is the type of person that wants to take away everybody's guns. Not long, we are treated to an Alexander anti-capitalist rant. It's long, so I gotta do it out again. So, I was the product of a failed society, a society that consistently rewards money and ignores everything else. What do you think my father became an ambassador to the UN? Because of any worthwhile diplomatic skills, or because of his political donations? See, that's what we do in America. We just figure because someone's rich, that means they're smart. Continuing to talk, Alexander semi-cleverly, he starts to reveal that he actually had access to JJ's father, and so they have this big emotional hostage situation. As far as you can tell, it looks like he's killed as a result, because she didn't open the door. And like a true independent Terminator with a vagina, she starts crying. So there's that. Again, the writing is so conflicted on like how to show character emotion and development, but at the same time is trying to keep up this girl power theme. They have no idea what they're doing. Since things still aren't working out, apparently shit gets real, and Alexander decides to start a self-destruct sequence. I guess was always available with this laptop that's been in the hallway for a long time. So like a whole bunch of explosives go off. Looks like a very solidified problem, very final problem. However, apparently it's the slowest sinking rig in ever of the world, and practically is reversed by going into a room where Shaw sacrifices himself using an extremely simple interface, just by like basically closing these valves that are seemingly were exploded off. Beaver is too, I guess, stupid to reverse this process, even though he has access to the same control panel. We also get the ridiculous I'm a patriot scene. The conversation goes, you don't have to do this, Beaver. You're not a murderer. And then Beaver says, you're right. I'm not a murderer. I'm a fucking patriot. So thanks to messing with the valves, this at least buys a little bit of time. Facility still sounds like it's self-destructing no matter what, but they're just trying to buy a little bit more time for either the SEALs can come in and clear out all the bad guys, just trying to hold the fort until then. So Alexander doesn't see this quite as a perfect situation yet, so they have more talking to do. And then, so they go on this weird conversation where they're taping up the window. He's oddly agitated. Like, he's having a real issue with taping up this window. it stands out as a character oddity. It doesn't match. And then, but at least we learned through this discussion that he is being paid, which doesn't make sense with his anti-capitalist stance. And then finally revealed that he is trying to collaborate with the Russian sub, so he's escaping alive. He's not quite full crazy town. That he's ready to go down with the whole facility, doing what he thinks is right. Which then goes back to like, why would he give his full name? And so a whole lot of ridiculous all at once there. Even though the valve work helped, so they start doing math more, and they're like, oh, you know, the time is just not going to work out. Like, this facility is going to sink sooner than we need. Timing's all off, so we're getting desperate now. And so JJ pitches back to the homeland this wild idea of letting the terrorists take over the control room, and then she'll do some sneaky stuff to like shoot down the missiles, yada yada yada. Anyway, clearly high risk, you know, crazy town idea, but hey, she's the only one with the idea. And so after pitching this, they bring in their like game theorist, which I've never heard before in at least an American tactical sense. Anyway, they ring this guy out here, clearly like a obnoxious bean counter character. And I just found it amusing where they clearly made him gay as well, just to add like an extra level of like the audience should just be disgusted with this guy because he has doubt of JJ's plan, and it was a weird moment.
I'm sorry. I cannot endorse such a move.
Since the leaders back at the Situation Room don't have any better ideas, they're like, oh, you go, girl, you make that crazy idea happen. And thus she proceeds and just lets the bad guys into the main command room. Interesting. It's like a full stop moment. As a part of this process, you learn that there was a top hatch access. So like where you saw the ninja come up from the very crazy bottom hatch access, there was a top hatch access the whole time. And so this opens up so many rooms for getting out capabilities, dual breach by the bad guys capability. Like, whoa. This is like we were talking about gas earlier. Now we're not talking about the hatch access. So anyway, JJ actually does a pump fake and just leaves that door open, and was actually doing a sneaky move where was in one of the fire suits and was able to like perform a little ambush action while Beavers go up top searching for a bunch of nonsense. Anyway, one thing leads to another nonsense. JJ has to go back up because they finally used that acid for something. So the acid finally went on the control panel, screwed that up. Probably would have been a lot easier to bring some incendiary grenades. But anyway, acid finally got used for something rather than taking shirts off. So JJ has to go up top, use this laptop computer again, which is, I don't know, they're portraying as a supercomputer. Supercomputer laptop connected with some stupid dongle going up. So this leads us into our I guess we finally get to fight with Beaver. The Beaver fight goes about as expected, where they rough each other up, and she gets some good nut kicks in there. And, you go, girl. And but we have an interesting said by no man ever. I quote: "You really think a little bit of razor wire is going to kill me?" As he gets in the situation where his whole neck is wrapped in razor wire, and that's his his big confidence, big dick energy right there. And so JJ's getting ready to toss him over. At first I thought she was just unnecessarily jumping with him, but upon further review, as a last-ditch effort, Beaver did grab JJ's vest to bring him with him. So now they're tumbling down to, it's a very long drop on this facility. As part of this process, because the razor wire is still connected to the fence, head pops off, it's a pretty good bad guy kill. But poor JJ, she's getting pretty beat up at this point. As a result of this big fall, JJ's a little concussed, stunned in the water, a little time to have to contemplate, and gets motivation from thinking of father's big motto of never stop fighting. I mean, it's not very creative, but hey, at least it's not offensive. And so she uses this inspiration, starts getting back in it, get going up these ladder rails to nowhere. Apparently, out of this whole situation is created by Team American Ninja Warrior. So her arms jacked up. She had to do it one-handed all the way up to seemingly ladder to nowhere, and then has to do monkey bars one-handed, also seemingly to nowhere, but it does at least finally get to that underhatch. Again, highlighting that the earlier ninja made an incredibly magical breach. So she does this, big moment of like, oh, there's a lot of space, and that looked tough, especially one-handed. And finally, she's able to get to the command room, which then gives her the roof access she needs. After sneaking in a little breather, JJ does get to the roof, presses the button just in time to shoot the defense missiles, to hit the Russian missiles. And like, everyone's relieved, see all of America, Chris Pratt, the Madam President, and even that gay bean pounder. He's still impressed. Now, despite JJ being pretty worn out doing the equivalent of the Tough Mudder oil rig edition, Alexander confronts her as his final act, and he immediately gets his ass just handed to him. It was sad. Beaver put up a better fight. It was just embarrassing. Gets his ass handed to him. And then the Russian sub shows up just in time, and you would think, oh, maybe he's gonna help out, and it's like, surprise, sucker! So like this guy comes out with a rifle, just blasts Alexander, and then the captain tosses a little milady to JJ, and so we're not really sure why. Were they mad at Alexander? Were they trying to prevent World War III? We're not sure, but apparently the movie kind of presents the Russians as some all-right folks all of a sudden. Fading away, JJ makes it back home at the hospital. Madam President comes in to say thanks and prep up the next job, and then surprise, Dad's not dead. Apparently the story was old, but he saved him just in time, even though it totally looks like they shot him in the face. Whatever. And even on top of that, it looks like they saved Shaw's turtle, Turbo. So, bonus points, right? And so as they pan out to show all the flowers, because all America is just so very grateful, then we get another Chris cameo, because, that's just been such a great thing throughout this whole movie. Now, taking a moment to look into how this abomination of a movie got made, it's notable that it was written and directed by Matthew Riley, and this happens to be his first movie. He's an accomplished writer, but this is his first movie. Looking at interviews, seems to be a nice enough guy, right? And he kind of comes off as a classic geek, likes all the classics like Die Hard, Indiana Jones, etc. The ones most of us know and love. So it's unclear how much compromise was required between having to write with Stuart Beattie and then eventually Netflix. Is kind of an interesting spin. So whoever's to blame, this script zoom in shows that Alexander America rant at one point was even worse than the final theatrical release. So here's some adding points of, and proudly proclaim that all men are created equal, but not women, not people of color, or anybody else who didn't own land. And Christ, today we can't even agree on what's true or not. And now we just worship new kings, the spoilt rich titans, and their wealth and privilege and fame. And at the very end, I wish I could see the whole word, but something and then one race. Again, these additions just enhance the far left rhetoric. I wish I could see that one word, but the fact that one race is there infers they were going to like race war level crazy town with that supposed speech. Whether or not Matt was based and Hollywood corrupted him, or maybe he was crazy town from the start and Netflix made him tone it down a notch. I guess I won't know till somebody tells me. But in general, it gives the vibe that you can tell the writers, which Matt Riley was born in Australia, they're only able to know America from like the MSNBC type of perspective. Like they have very little grasp on these conflicting groups of America, what really motivates them, why there's differences. And in classic Hollywood fashion, they're like basically talking down to us, like, oh, look at all your problems, even though they have very little understanding of the reality. The Interceptor movie result is basically one big display of everything wrong with Hollywood right now. So you have your forced woke commentary at the expense of decent storytelling. You have your like big pro-woman empowerment supposedly presenting and then you end up with your unexpected misogynistic stereotyping out of nowhere, and then just finish it off with a sprinkle of nepotism. So, and on that note, if it wasn't obvious, it's easy to overlook. So the Chris Hemsworth cameos are because he's one of the executive producers, and the main actress, Elsa Pataky, that's his wife. And it's frustrating because Elsa looks great, especially for her age. Looks like she can accomplish many things. Tough lady getting in there, getting in the fight. But when it comes to giving believable dialogue, that is not her thing. Like, first day of shooting, somebody should have been like, this is not working. Clearly that did not happen. Just kept going and on about people, just no one saying anything, no one getting in the way, saying reality. And then here we are. Since Interceptor wasn't a theatrical release, it was on Netflix, I'm not sure the perfect way to try and express Netflix to not make similar. Perhaps you can just not watch it, give it a thumbs down, send a letter to Netflix or something. It's not the biggest deal in the world. I'm mostly just trying to communicate to people that thought maybe it was a good movie. That's very much not a good movie. However, that's said, going into it, you want to get drunk, get the friends together to laugh at it. Still a free country, that could be fun too. Anyway, it's been a long journey. Thanks for hanging in there for the end. Hopefully you were entertained. So, thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to support us, please check out the MIL-SPEC Monkey Store. Although known for morale patches, we also specialize in a good selection of DIY hardware and tactical accessories.